Every song you've ever loved, every speech that sent shivers down your spine, every whispered confession, every stadium roar, captured, preserved, amplified through a single invention. An invention so powerful it shaped the very way humanity hears itself. But here's the twist. This invention wasn't born in a corporate boardroom. It wasn't designed by a household name. No. It came from the mind of a black man, a man almost erased from the story of modern technology. If you've never heard his name before, you're not alone. And yet, right now, as you watch this, his creation sits inside your phone, your laptop, your headphones, your smart speaker. It's everywhere. It's invisible. It's essential. His design powers over 90% of microphones in the world today. Think about that. The voice of Beyoncé, the cries for justice in the streets. Even the very words I'm speaking to you now owe their existence to James West. And yet, his name is missing from textbooks, his story buried under the weight of history's silence. Why? Why do we celebrate Edison, Bell, Jobs, but not West? Why is the man who gave us the sound of our world still unheard? This is not just a story about invention. It's a story about struggle, about genius born in the shadows, about a man who defied the odds in a world determined to mute him. This is the untold story of James West, the black inventor who changed how humanity hears itself. But before his voice could reach the world first tried to silence him. It's the 1930s. The world of sound is clumsy, fragile, microphones the size of bricks, heavy, unreliable, and reserved for the rich, the powerful, the chosen few. If you weren't in the spotlight, you didn't get a voice. Now, layer this over America's reality. Segregation at every corner. Schools divided by skin color. Laboratories closed to anyone who wasn't white. The path to science for black children wasn't just narrow, it was almost non-existent. Doors were locked, futures predetermined. And yet, in a quiet corner of rural Virginia, a boy refused to accept silence. His name was James. He had no lab, no shiny equipment, just scraps, wires, and an imagination that refused to be caged. He'd pull apart radios, piece together broken gadgets, risk shocks and burns, because he needed to know how things worked. His father, watching nervously, feared the boy would electrocute himself. But James saw something else. Possibility, patterns, a secret language in every spark and circuit. While the world told him, "Stay in your place," he whispered back, "No." But here's the question. How could a poor black boy growing up in the segregated South with no access to opportunity ever hope to shape the future of sound? Being a child with a hunger no meal could satisfy. Not for food, but for knowledge, for answers hidden inside wires, circuits, and the hum of electricity. That was James. While other kids in rural Virginia played ball in the fields, James was crouched over broken radios, discarded parts, anything he could find. To most, it was junk. To him, it was treasure. Each piece whispered secrets. Each spark felt like a doorway into another world. He had no laboratory, no textbooks, no teachers to guide him through the mysteries of sound. So he became his own teacher. Scrap metal became experiments. Old batteries became lifelines. Nights stretched long as he tinkered in silence, the glow of makeshift contraptions lighting his face. But every success came with risk. A wrong connection meant a sharp shock, a burn across his fingers. His father worried, one day that boy will kill himself with those wires. But James wasn't afraid. Pain was just the price of discovery. And discovery was his obsession. Sound wasn't just noise to him, it was possibility. He wanted to understand how voices could travel through wires, how music could be captured, how the invisible could be audible. Yet outside his small world of experiments, America remained unyielding. Segregation hung heavy. Black children were told to work with their hands, not their minds. Science, technology, invention, these were not meant for them. But James refused to listen. He had heard a different voice, the voice of potential. Against staggering odds, he earned his way into Hampton University. For a young black man in the 1950s, it was a triumph. But triumph did not mean acceptance. The halls of higher education echoed with doubt. Professors offered little support. Classmates underestimated him, ignored him, sometimes mocked him. He was brilliant, but brilliance alone wasn't enough to protect him from the weight of prejudice. Still, James carried the fire of his childhood experiments into every classroom. He fought for space in a world that wanted him silent. Every test, every late night, every lecture where he had to prove he belonged became another battle in his war against invisibility. But war takes a toll. Even brilliance can be broken under constant doubt. And as the walls of racism closed in around him, one question began to haunt his path. Would his passion survive the weight of a world built to silence him? It's the late 1950s, the golden age of American science. Bell Labs, a place whispered about like a temple of innovation, the home of the transistor, the birthplace of lasers, the forge of technologies that would shape the modern world. To walk its halls was to step into the future. And into those halls walked James West, a young black intern, bright-eyed, determined, carrying not just his dreams, but the weight of generations who had been told science was not for them. But Bell Labs was not a welcoming sanctuary. For most of the men in white lab coats, James was not seen as a peer. He was the black intern, an outsider in a world dominated by white engineers and scientists. Every glance carried doubt. Every silence carried judgment. He was watched more closely, tested more harshly, expected to fail. And yet, James refused to shrink. He had been underestimated his whole life. This was nothing new. So while others whispered, he worked. While others doubted, he dreamed. And then came the spark of an idea. Microphones. The very devices meant to capture sound, the human voice itself, were bulky, fragile, and expensive. Glass components broke too easily, costs soared, reliability lagged. James began to wonder, what if it didn't have to be that way? What if microphones could be smaller, cheaper, stronger? What if sound itself could be democratized? The answer, he believed, lay in something few had considered, the Electret principle. Instead of delicate, charged components that constantly needed external power, James envisioned a material that could hold its charge permanently, like a tiny, frozen battery inside the microphone. It was radical. It was untested. It was dangerous to his reputation. Because in the polished corridors of Bell Labs, failure wasn't just personal, it was public. One wrong move, and he would not just be the intern who failed. He would be the black intern who proved their doubts right. But James didn't stop. He built prototypes late into the night. He soldered, rewired, tested again and again. The hum of machines surrounded him like a choir, pushing him forward. Every time a design collapsed, he pushed harder. Every time a spark fizzled, he dug deeper. To him, this wasn't just engineering. It was survival. It was proof. He wasn't just building a microphone. He was building a future where voices everywhere, poor or rich, black or white, could be heard. And so the question hung in the air, heavy, electric, waiting for its answer. Could this risky experiment create something the world had never heard before? The silence of failure. A lab filled with wires, shattered prototypes, and the smell of burnt circuits. Night after night, James West sat there, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling, chasing a dream that refused to come easily. Every attempt collapsed. Every spark sputtered out. Every design seemed to mock him. Colleagues whispered. Some said he was wasting his time. Others laughed behind closed doors. To them, the black intern was overreaching, daring to solve a problem too big, too bold. But James refused to surrender. Failure wasn't an ending, it was fuel. Each misstep pushed him closer to the answer, hidden in the chaos. And then, after years of struggle, in 1962, the breakthrough came. The Electret microphone. Small enough to fit in your hand, cheap enough to be mass-produced, sturdy enough to survive where older microphones shattered. It was a revolution in sound. With this one invention, the entire world shifted. Telephones could now carry voices across continents more clearly, more cheaply. Musicians could record in ways never imagined. Broadcasters could bring the news, live and immediate, into every home. Even NASA saw potential. His microphone would help capture voices in the void of space. The old world of sound, the bulky, fragile, exclusive world, was gone. James West had replaced it with something democratic, something powerful, something universal. And yet, as his invention spread across the globe, something strange happened. People celebrated the microphone. They marveled at its magic. They used it in concerts, classrooms, living rooms, even on the moon. But they did not celebrate James West. Outside of technical journals and patents buried in dusty archives, his name was barely mentioned. No parades, no headlines, no household recognition. The world embraced his creation, but ignored its creator. And that silence, the silence of being erased, cut deeper than any failure in the lab. How could an invention so revolutionary, one that gave sound to billions, still leave its inventor in the shadows? You pick up the phone. You say hello. Your voice travels across miles, across oceans, clear, sharp, alive. Now imagine a concert hall. The singer steps to the mic. The crowd holds its breath. And suddenly her voice soars, captured, amplified, filling the air like fire. Or think of something smaller. A grandmother slipping a hearing aid into her ear. For the first time in years, she hears her granddaughter laugh without strain. Every one of these moments, every voice, every note, every connection, carried by one invention, James West's microphone. It is everywhere. In classrooms, in recording studios, in the control rooms of NASA, where astronauts spoke into the void of space and were heard back on Earth. His technology became the invisible backbone of modern communication, the thread tying together humanity's greatest conversations. And yet, here's the cruel twist. The world celebrated the results, but not the man. James West went on to hold more than 250 patents, 250 sparks of brilliance, 250 answers to problems most people didn't even know existed. And still, his name rarely appeared in textbooks, rarely in history lessons, rarely in the mouths of those who benefited most from his genius. Think about that. We remember Edison, we remember Bell, we remember Jobs. But James West, whose invention touches 90% of microphones today, remains invisible. And yet, his fingerprints are everywhere. Every "I have a dream" echoing through the Washington Mall. Every protest chant demanding freedom. Every anthem that lifted a nation. Every broadcast that connected the world. All of it riding on the shoulders of James West. The irony is deafening. The man who gave sound to billions was forced into silence by history itself. So the question hangs heavy. If James West shaped the very voice of humanity, why has history tried so hard to silence his? The man who once sat alone in a lab, soldering wires until his hands ached, is no longer just an inventor. He has become something greater. James West is older now. His name may not be famous, but his wisdom is priceless. And instead of keeping that brilliance locked away, he turns outward, toward the next generation. He remembers the stares, the doubt, the way doors closed because of the color of his skin. And he makes a promise to himself. No young black scientist, no curious mind will have to walk alone the way he did. So he begins to teach. He mentors. He guides. Young engineers step into his orbit, nervous, unsure if they belong in the intimidating world of science. And James West looks at them the way no one once looked at him, with belief. He tells them, your ideas matter, your voice matters, you belong here. And something extraordinary happens. Students who once thought of quitting stay in the fight. Innovators who doubted their worth go on to earn their own patents. Dreamers who nearly gave up find themselves saying with pride, without him, I wouldn't be here. This is James West's second invention. Not a device, not a microphone, but a legacy. A pipeline of young black scientists and engineers carrying his torch into the future. He fought not only to innovate, but to dismantle the barriers that nearly silenced him. Every mentee was a victory. Every success, a quiet rebellion against the system that once tried to erase him. But here's the haunting question. If a man as brilliant as James West could be hidden from history, if his story could be muted while his invention amplified the world, what does that mean for us today, in a world still battling inequality? A world without microphones, no music that lives forever, no speeches that echo through time, no voices carried across continents. That world almost existed, and yet, because of one man, it doesn't. James West gave us more than a device. He gave us the gift of sound, the power to capture our laughter, the ability to record our grief, the means to carry our stories beyond the limits of our own breath. But here's the deeper truth. His greatest invention wasn't only the Electret microphone. It was something more invisible, more enduring, inspiration. Proof that brilliance can rise even when the world tries to bury it. Proof that genius doesn't belong to one race, one class, one corner of history. Proof that the next world-changing idea might come from the person least expected. Think about that. James West began as a boy pulling apart broken radios in a small, segregated town in Virginia. No resources, no roadmap, no safety net. And yet, he reshaped the very way humanity hears itself. So here's the question that lingers. Whose voice will be next? The next James West may be a child soldering wires in a garage, or a student scribbling formulas no one else believes in, or someone, right now, sitting in silence, waiting for the world to give them a chance. The future is waiting for that voice, waiting for that spark, waiting for the courage to rise, just like James West once did. And if his story teaches us anything, it's this. Forgotten heroes deserve to be remembered, because without them, we lose the sound of who we are. If you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, don't let them fade into silence. Subscribe, share, pass them on. Because the voices of the past gave us everything, and the voices of the future might just change the world.